Well, I'm Pat Mcginnis, the Treasurer of the National Housing Party. I stand in local elections, and this is the reason we started our party. Myself and John Lawrence, with great help of Paul Rimmer and Stephanie Parker as well. And it's all about local elections. So I'm just going to give you a brief update on my election campaign. I stood in 2022 and got a very good vote, and I didn't plan to stand again, but the response I got on the doorstep was so good that I decided that I could potentially win this seat if I put a solid campaign in. So I started campaigning in 2023. The election is in 2026, and so I'm two years and 6 months into the campaign. I've been going out religiously every single week, twice a week, each time for 2 hours. So that's 4 hours canvassing every single week, and I've delivered 5 different leaflets. So I did my first leaflet in 2022, which was quite controversial, but I got a good response. And when I decided that I was going to go for it, it took me a year to decide whether I was going to stand in my own area, because I wasn't planning on doing it because I live in a Labour stronghold, and Keir Starmer is actually my MP. So if I do win, which is possible, I'm not going to say I am going to win, but it is possible. If I do, it could be quite a big headline. Yeah. So when I made the decision that I was going to go for it, I said, right, I'm going to have to think doing a leaflet. So I thought I'll do a thank you leaflet for the people who voted me in 2022. So I've done a thank you leaflet, kind of reinforced the stuff I was campaigning about. They're closing a lot of roads in London and other places in the country. They're called LTNs, low traffic neighbourhood schemes. But the main thing with our campaign is housing and immigration. And we're not shy to say we want to completely stop permanent settlement immigration and no more refugees for citizenship. Yeah. And so that's the main thing, because we're the National Housing Party. So I did a thank you leaflet. Thank you to everyone who voted for me. And every single leaflet I've said that I'm a Christian, we want to stop permanent settlement immigration, and we want to stop accepting refugees for citizenship. And I've put a lot of statistics in on my second leaflet, I put a story in there of one of my neighbours who lives in the block of flats where I live, and he basically slept on his mum's sofa for 30 years and phoned up Camden Council, can you get me a flat? No, we haven't got any. Can you put me on a waiting list? No. And on my travels, door knocking, I've heard this story so many times. And as we all know, we're being flooded with refugees, and they're being given priority. So that's the second leaflet. The third leaflet, I've just done our warm-up leaflet, which is here. If anyone wants one of those, that's there. And that's my newsletter there, if anyone wants a copy of that. So the third leaflet was the warm-up leaflet, what we use around the country whenever we stand. We've stood in various places, Oldham, South Gloucestershire, Rugby, and I've got a few other campaigns going on. So that was my third leaflet, and then I decided to do a newsletter, which is there, that one. That was my newsletter, and then the fifth leaflet will be my final leaflet, which I've more or less prepared already. So by the time we get to the election, my electorate would have had 5 different leaflets, and as I said, I've said those things on every single one, and the response I'm getting on the doorstep is pretty good. I spoke to about 1,500 people, and I'm getting a very, very good response. And getting a few people not happy about my campaign, because it's quite a lefty area in certain places. But on the council estates, which is split between English and Muslim, I would say, most of these people are voting for me because they're all overcrowded. Like I say, I hear that story all the time. They can't go. They're not allowing them to go on the waiting lists. So it's going very well. A few months ago, they published in the local newspaper that the Labour Party they're having trouble finding enough candidates. Can you believe that? This is unprecedented, yeah? They need 55 candidates in Camden, and they said they can only find 48. And two of the candidates in my ward, because there's 3 positions up for election, 2 of them, they've thrown a towel in. And I think, personally, one of them, who is of Somalian descent, and he doesn't like me, and got a little bit of a... well, there was a bit of a competitive thing going on, but I think he's now bottled it because of my relentless door knocking campaign, 2.5 years so far. They're getting messages all the time. This guy keeps knocking on the door, blah blah blah, and they're probably saying to him, Labour are probably saying to him, you better get out of the doors. But the Labour Party can't go knocking on doors because they'll be told to you know what. So he's decided to throw the towel in. And another one as well. So there's 3 candidates usually win every single time. 2 of them have. So the latest is, because they think my ward is a safe seat, it's Holborn and Covent Garden ward, it's in the south of Camden. The leader of Camden Council, he's decided to replace one of these 2 councillors because they think it's a safe seat. But as you know, I've spoken to a lot of you before I spoke. I'm getting a very good response on the doorstep. So, you know, I think they could be in for a shock. What a dream election for me would be is Liberal Democrats stand 3 candidates, the Green Party stand 3 candidates, and that's going to split the Labour vote. Obviously, you've got Reform there. You know, I'd rather them not stand, but they're going to be there. And the big question is, will they have 1 candidate or 3 candidates? If they only have 1 candidate, I'm going to have a very, very good chance of winning. And, you know, in Jesus' name, this could happen. You never know. And that's what I do. I pray to win, you know. And I've said on every leaflet I'm a Christian nationalist. And the surprise, I've learnt so much from this campaign. The Muslims, they want a Christian patriotic nationalist ruling over them. They don't want an atheist Labour Party councillor. They don't want it. They're more than happy to support a Christian than an atheist. And you know, there's all different communities in my ward, but I'm getting such a good response. I've got a very good chance of winning. So yeah, I've done this newsletter, which is quite a big, in-depth newsletter of the main things I'm campaigning on. And there's 4 main things really. And I say Camden People First for housing. You know, they shouldn't be allowing newly arrived refugees to be housed anymore. They made Camden a refugee borough sanctuary in 2023 when we've got 30,000 people on the council house waiting list. And I've put all that in here. There's 2 issues there with the road closures and the parking spaces, and there's another big issue of street drug use in Covent Garden. There's people taking crack and heroin outside people's front doors, basically. It's that bad. So my solution is to that, about the drug problem, because it's been going on for 30 years around there, and I've seen it in my own eyes, people doing it on the streets, I've seen the dealing, and I basically said, they can't solve this problem. The only solution is to give an automatic 4-week prison sentence for anyone doing it openly on the street. So next time they get their drugs, they'll think twice about doing it. Like it's just chaos and anarchy around there now, and they need a zero tolerance to sort this problem out. And so I started a petition for that. I mean, let's get real. The police are probably not going to implement that, but it gives me a chance to knock on the door again, to speak to the same people again. So you've got to think of something, a new thing, so you can go and knock on that door again to speak to them again. Because a lot of the people said they're going to vote for me. They're going to. Well, I know they have already, because some of them they have forgotten. So that's why you've got to find multiple things to keep knocking. Best one is a new leaflet. You do a new leaflet, go and knock on the door. Hello, did you get my last leaflet? No. Oh, I've got it here. So I just quickly go through it, and you know, I'm a big believer in local elections. That's the only way we're going to make a difference. And yeah, so things are going really well, and yeah, so there's some leaflets there if anyone's interested in my campaign. And who knows, next time, because the election's coming up next May, only 6 months to go. But get out there door knocking, guys, and yeah, that's it really. Thanks a lot.
Any questions of Pat?
Yeah. Can you be by? Yeah, back there.
Any questions to Pat?
So my friend's son died, and he died of an OD. So I grew up with him. So what you're talking about drugs is relative. I've lost a number of friends to drugs. One of the things they're doing in Scotland is consumption rooms, and which makes it easier to take drugs. But I would have suggested that direct interventions, where rather than going to prison, you get a secured accommodation where you're basically prohibited from taking drugs for, say, 3 months, where you will, by the 3 months' time, you will be over or off your addiction. That will cost money, but I would say that in the longer term, if you get, in America it's called an intervention, where your family members or people come and say, you should try and come off this, and by securing or giving opportunity for a secured location where you'll be prohibited for taking or doing compulsive behavioural patterns until you break the habit. They may relapse, but they could also have group counselling like NA as well on the back of that. But after 3 months, usually the habit would have been broken. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, there's one thing I didn't mention. I was on heroin myself,
right.
And I'm 20 years clean from heroin. I know the game inside out,
yeah.
and our policy actually for long term is to decriminalise all drugs. That's not selling it in shops, but have government doctors controlling it with prescription only. Because what people got to understand is there's most of these junkies, they don't want to stop, and what is the point of it being illegal? I mean, if I wanted it now in London, I can go and get it. So
well, you probably understand that when you're in the middle of your addiction, you're not really thinking about anything else. But if you get an intervention and then in a secured location for a period of time, it can break the addiction. And you can also use NA and group counselling to help the breaking of that addiction. But when you're actually in the throes of the addiction, you don't really, it's very difficult to break it sometimes by yourself, as you probably know.
Well, I don't want to give a life story, but I was practically on the heroin for about 9 years. 7 years of that time, I didn't want to stop. And all the ducking and diving and all that, the excitement, it was a big attraction for it, and it prolongs it longer. Because the ultimate thing what made me stop in the end, it gets boring. You get bored of it, you can't just stop it, and it's very difficult to stop, but it gradually gets worse and worse and worse. But like I said, there's some, like in my ward, some people, they don't want to sign my thing about the 4 week thing, and I say, look, that 4 weeks in prison for these people, that might be the kickstart they need to get off the gear and then go to a rehab. But there's a large proportion of them who don't want to stop.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying, that's why it would be like an intervention where rather than going to prison to stop it, you would go to a secure unit, which might be a bit softer than the prison, but would actually, you wouldn't be interacting with the public, and you'd be forced to stop for that 3 months or whatever it would be.
Well, and also, if they did decriminalise it, the amount of money they would save from police, customs, the courts, they could pump that money into rehabilitation for the people who do want to stop. And you know, and in our policy we say, well, at least give it a try for 4 years, and if there's no results, we go back to what we've got now. In America, they tried to put harsher sentences on people. They've ended up with 1 million people in prison because there's a lot of people who recreationally use drugs and they just don't want to stop. So, you know, I'm not advising people to do drugs. I completely say don't do it. But there was something I forgot to say in my speech actually, just about our party, and we've got about 35 policies on our website, and these are 12 of the ones that kind of mean quite a lot to us. So the first one, stop permanent settlement immigration, deport all illegals, stop accepting refugees for citizenship, exit the UN Refugee Convention. We're a Christian nationalist party, and we kind of would like to encourage a third of all schools in a borough to become Christian. And also we've just released a new policy of banning abortion. We've estimated that because of abortion since 1967, we've probably lost about 20 million Indigenous British people. ban foreign ownership of land and property in the UK, including football clubs. You know, we're a Christian British nationalist party who believe in Great Britain and Northern Ireland. Reject Zionism and foreign interest groups like Friends of Israel groups in our political parties. We want to nationalise gas, electric and water and the national rail system. Anti-globalist, we want to leave NATO, UN, IMF, WEF and WHO. And we're pushing a message of rejecting politically correct language. Don't validate words like racist, homophobic, anti-Semitic, Islamophobic and the rest of them. Scrap the Equalities Act and all hate crime legislation. We've got a white British group identity policy which would make it legal, because a lot of people don't realise that what they've done is they've made our group identity illegal, the indigenous population. So you can't open up a charity or a business or a political party specifically for white British people. And in our policy it clearly says that, you know, black people should have the right to do that as well, and that's what you call a free society. Yeah, last one is we've got a policy to ban foreign religious buildings, any further foreign religious buildings to be built, including mosques, Sikh and Hindu temples and synagogues. So that's what we're about. We are the National Housing Party. Any questions?
Not so much a question, but a supplementary to what you just said about the English identity. Many years ago, Tony Linsell, who wrote an English nationalism book, excellent book, I would recommend it to anyone, started Steadfast, which was to preserve the culture of the English peoples, or people, and it was a registered charity for a while, and then it somehow it was challenged in the courts and lost its charitable status,
So they
that's an example. But I would have thought that runs counter to the UN stuff about indigenous peoples, which I think some people could actually.
Well, I mentioned the Equalities Act there, and that's how they've done it. Basically, you can't open up a party for English people only or British people only because of the Equalities Act, and not only it stops us doing that, it also has paved the way for people to advertise for jobs and ban white people from applying for the jobs. Because they say, oh, there's too many white British people in that industry. We've got to discriminate to get more ethnic minorities in.
Because I find it mad that something like Steadfast loses its charitable status, and yet Hope Not Hate has its charitable status and is actively trying to destroy people.
So basically, you need to ban critical race theory.
Yes.
Which is an American import. And the other thing, you need to kick BlackRock out, because BlackRock and Gates are hoovering up assets to get them all tokenised. So every blade of grass, every drop of water, every river, waterway, park, everything is going to be a token on the blockchain, the likes of Augustine Carstens and Christine Lagarde will be able to control.
They're buying up vast amounts of properties as well, and our policy of banning foreign ownership would cover that.
And we need to trace back the origins of critical race theory to the Frankfurt School of Critical Theory, and we need to actually really use that as one of our campaigns, because I know Reform won't touch that.
No, they won't, because they're establishment through and through, and they are uniparty. There'd be in no doubt, they are grooming Mr Farage to be the next PM, and there might be an election, general election within 2 years, where they kick Starmer out and somehow the WEF get Farage in. So the World Economic Forum, the stakeholder capitalism, is behind a lot of this. You need to look at Yellow Forum and see how that works.
Okay, well, thanks again to Pat.